We are in the dying days, unfortunately, of MLB The Show 21, a game that I've been playing basically since the launch. And just about this time last year, we are waiting for all of the news and all of the hype in regards to the game. And as we get into February and March, we're going to be hearing a lot of news in regards to MLB The Show 22, from the cover athlete to all the new gameplay features, new players, all of that. And what I thought would be a smart thing to do is kind of go back in time a year ago, reflect on some of the new features and stuff that were announced for the new game, go through and break down how I think they were implemented this year, go through what we could maybe expect to see with the game coming into the next year here, and kind of break this down for someone who was just about a year ago in the same exact position but with MLB The Show 21, and go through all the new features and what you guys could be expecting if this is your first go around hearing all the hype and news in the new game. Speaking of all the news and hype of MLB The Show 22, this is going to be the place you want to be for all the news. Whenever there's any gameplay updates, any sort of features that are announced with the new game, we're going to break it down in a manner that is easy for you guys to understand. Your first year playing with MLB The Show 21, or maybe you're keeping an eye out on it from the outside and haven't played this game before, we're going to try to break down all of these things in a manner so everyone can understand, talk about how these things affect the game itself, and talk about things that I want myself as new features in the game as we get closer and closer to the new one. So if you are brand new, make sure you are subbed down below and you like this video if you do happen to enjoy my breakdown of these features and the things related to MLB The Show 21. Let's hop on in the first feature premiere of MLB The Show 21 and break down the new features that they were announcing and breaking down for the game and see what could have been done better or what was implemented well. So as you see, the first feature premiere here was streamed on March 11th, 2021. So that means we're probably over a month away from hearing new features and stuff if this game is on a similar schedule to last year, which it may be tough. But you see, we have a full half-hour video going through the new things, hitting and pitching wise, that were announced for MLB The Show 21. And the first thing that happens to show up here are gameplay styles. If you remember, they were selling this in MLB The Show 21. When you first load the game, you could choose a style of gameplay that kind of fine-tuned your experience you wanted for casual, simulation, and competitive. You know, if you hop on, you just want to have a fun time, easy experience, you play casual. If you want to have a realistic baseball experience, then you do sim. If you want to just have your user input reign supreme and all that, then you would do competitive, and this is the default for all online play. I thought before the game came out, this would have been a bigger deal, mostly because they explicitly stated competitive is for online play. They really want to focus on user input being rewarded. Like, I thought this would have been like a mentality shift. Like, they really want user input to be the main focus in online play, and I thought it could have been an overall shift in things we'd see over time with the game. Not entirely sure if things had changed, and I think for a Diamond Dynasty player who plays online a lot, this probably does not have much of an impact whatsoever. But I think for the people who play Road to the Show franchise, all those offline modes, this probably was a somewhat neat feature for you if you were brand new, trying to give it a good go and you just like to play offline. I think this is probably a solid feature, but I really did not think this added any value to me this year, someone who plays Diamond Dynasty and loves to play online games.
Let's talk about pitching and hitting, but before we do, let's jump into some gameplay and let's talk about check swings, a community contentious topic.
All right, so here to talking about check swings. If you guys remember early on in the year, they announced that check swings are being tuned this year, trying to make the check swing fit the animation more and more accurate check swings. And me personally, I think I noticed it from my own side of the gameplay, but from someone who plays online, I feel like my issue with check swings is not that, you know, it's down to user input. I feel like overall they need to be more punished. I'm glad there is a little bit of like a skill. You know, if you're good at check swinging and you genuinely tap the button, you usually will hold the check swing back unless you have like low discipline and all that. But from my experience, I think a lot of issues with check swings come in online play, where some people just spam it all the time and seem to not get punished. Also, in general, when you're in an online play, the check swing isn't always accurate. You know, if your opponent check swings, a lot of times it'll look like that check swing actually went and they actually swung. In their game, apparently that wasn't the case. And you kind of just gotta hope and pray that, you know, the game was right. I've noticed on my end of the game where I felt like I check swung and I definitely swung, the game still called it a check swing. So I don't know if that's something server related or something with online play that's broken. I do think this is good. I feel like it's an improvement. Maybe there's an issue with online play and actually making sure check swings are accurate on both ends of the game, since you have like two different perspectives of the game. Feels like two different things are happening. And just in general, I think if you're someone who spams it, I don't care what discipline you have, if you check swing X amount of times or whatever, they gotta eventually start calling them strikes, because sometimes you play people who are really check swing happy, and it is kind of annoying to face and also very unrealistic. So they talked about the exit velocities and all that of each swing and all that here. We'll take a check on that here.
Totality of MLB the Show 20. Really satisfied with how the hitting engine shaped out throughout the totality of the year. Is that correct?
So this is something really interesting. I think one thing to note with this, exit velocity by swing timing, probably fine. Like this seems like good, you know, perfect exit velocity 107, you know, that's more than fine hitting the ball hard. This is before MLB the Show 21, by the way, and I assume they use these numbers to carry into this game. But I do want to talk about something that's a little bit misleading with this. I feel like if you're talking about the exit velocity by timing, timing isn't the only thing that should be the thing that determines your exit velocity. Like, for example, if you're very late and very early, part of the reason why those exit velocities are so low is because you're really not squaring up the ball a lot of times when you're that early or late. So you're not really getting any good contact. I feel like what should be the measurement here is exit velocity by good timing. If you guys saw my YouTube video I made the other week, I actually measured this stuff myself in MLB the Show 21, measured all the good contact swings that people got, and put it on a little chart so you guys could visualize how hard the exit velocities were. They need to look into the good, in my opinion. When you look into good timing, a lot of it is really varied based on the timing you have on the early side or late side. If you saw that last video I made, like I mentioned, being on the late side of good seems to punish you a lot more than being on the early side of good. And I would say two things are of preference for me. A, you probably got to raise that late side of good exit velocity to be a little higher. I'm cool with late swings overall being slower than early, you know. That's not a bad thing, I don't think. But I would say that when you're on the late side of good and the early side of good, it's such a minute difference in the swing path. You shouldn't be hitting the ball on average, say just early and just late, for example, 4 miles per hour slower. And same with like the early and late side of good. I feel like these have to be a little closer to each other, especially the early and late side of good. Or do you just overall change the label of the swing? So perfect is maybe just the last of your good, and anything after perfect timing is just on late. And you make it clear that, you know, late side of good probably isn't good timing with how it's been rewarding. And I feel like that could be something to be changed. And I think this is actually really interesting find because, you know, this is just all the exit velocity swings with all the timings, no matter if it's good or weak or any sort of contact. They should look into this themselves with good contact. That's really what people care about. They want to see if you do square up the ball, how much does timing have an impact?
Correct, Kyle?
So here, this is everyone's favorite graphic ever. I mean, they found that in online play, people have an 843 batting average on perfect perfects, a 550 batting average on good goods. So you would look at this and be like, okay, you know, perfect perfects are being rewarded a lot, so on and so forth. A lot of people would tell you this is being really gassed up. Just being someone who plays the game all the time, I think I could see this number being true, but there's a reason the number is probably higher than some people expect. If you're someone who doesn't get many perfect perfects, they talk about how with perfect perfects, people probably would get only a few a game at most. I remember them saying that a couple years ago. And I feel like now, as you're a solid hitter and say all-star, Hall of Fame, you're going to run into easily multiple perfect hits in a game. Anyone who gets a lot of perfect hits, I feel like would feel this is lower. Like if I were just to guess my batting average on perfect perfects on, say, all-star or Hall of Fame or legend difficulty, I would say it'd be in like the 700s, which probably could be higher. Speaking, it's like a perfect swing. That's just me taking a rough guess. I don't really have any logic or feeling behind that. It's just what my gut would be feeling. I feel like when you're on the lower difficulties and you hit these perfect perfects, you know, you're getting a lot better PCIs. You know, if you're hitting with a power hitter on lower difficulty, it's easier to get a perfect fly ball like you want. But when you're on higher difficulties, when you hit more PP liners, PP grounders and all that, I feel like you don't get rewarded as much. That's partially because of the type of hitters people use and all that. And I feel like there's so many moving pieces with this. I think this is potentially valuable, but I think the community would love more of a breakdown of what in specific, you know, these averages were, like perfect fly balls, perfect round out. Like, it would be cool if it wasn't just based on timing and contact with the perfect. You specify on the liners, the grounders, and the flyouts, because if you were to ask me, I feel like we need higher averages on PP grounders or line drives. So here are the online splits for the type of hits. You have 54% singles, 19% doubles, 2% triples, and 16% home runs. And I'm not really sure how I feel about this. I've heard a lot of people say they feel like the game is reliant on home runs. And I think this might be kind of the case for people who are, say, making a World Series push. and you're playing at the higher level of the game. I feel like, again, if you're asking for like the overall experience of the game, I could see how this is the case. For people who maybe aren't as good at the game, they aren't going to hit as many home runs. But once you start getting into like the people who play Diamond Dynasty and play this game a lot, I feel like the game becomes really reliant on home runs. And I know when you're someone who's struggling, it feels like the home run is always the big difference maker of each game. I really do think that's the case. So like, I feel like the proportions might make sense for this, but just judging based on how people feel about the game, I find some people find the game to be too home run dependent. And a 99% of perfect hits have been fair. This is an interesting one as well in terms of this year. If you guys have been playing the game, you realize a lot of times you'll get some balls that are perfect foul balls. And I could see this being true with the actual labeled perfect foul balls. But one thing I found in online play, I don't know if you guys realize this too, sometimes you'll hit the ball and you'll be like, say, early on it, and the game will make the sound like the ball is a perfect. Like it sounds like it's a perfect off the bat. But, you know, it'll either start off as a perfect or it will say some different contact right away. And I feel like there's something up with the desync of the game. Like the game in your game is saying one thing, but something else is happening. It's causing this weird, like, out of sync type thing happen with the gameplay. The amount of swings where I hear that perfect contact being fair, I would say it's definitely less than 99%. But everything that the game labels as perfect and stays as perfect when you touch, I could see this making sense. But in terms of someone who plays online, I feel like the game isn't always telling the truth, if you get what I mean. Here they're talking about the perfect pitching. They have the perfect area region. Good feature in the year. Obviously, pitching took a big jump up this year. Last year felt impossible to pitch. This year, I really think pitching is really a big part of the game, which I think, just being real, pinpoint pitching and the perfect pitching area is really a big part of the game now. I think it's really even the playing field between the hitting and pitching side of the game. I guess one thing I want to talk about with the par is, again, based on online play. I think this is entirely accurate. You know, when the game works as functioned, the ball will stay within the par. But I don't know if anyone else has found this. A lot of times you'll throw a pitch, like say you aim this par here, and what you'll do is when you're pitching the ball, it looks like it's going to be a perfect, like, you know, you're doing the perfect motion, you get good on the first motion, and then when you swipe down, it has like this weird desync thing. It doesn't start off as like assuming you got a perfect. It starts off, say, yellow or green, that little bar as you're going down, and then it just says perfect. Like the game updates like, okay, you got a perfect, you got X amount of percentage on all three motions, so you get a perfect. But I feel like in game it doesn't 100% translate, and when you do get some of those perfect pitches, you'll get pitches either on the very edge pretty consistently of the par or just outside of the par. Like a lot of times I'll aim a pitch here, the par will be over here, I'll throw a perfect pitch, and then the ball will hang in the middle of the zone, and then I'll give up a home run. And I think, again, in terms of the connection in the two-sided part of the game for online play, that's something being caused by that. Just being someone who plays the game all the time, I know if I'm getting a perfect pitch, it should be within the par. Why is it when I aim a pitch out here, it somehow hangs over the heart of the plate and they give up a home run? It's happened to me plenty of points throughout the year. I've clipped on Twitter, talked about it. Here to talk about pinpoint some more, and again, just double down on it. I think pinpoint is really just the wave. I think this is one of my favorite features in the game this year. Just in terms of how the pitches work, I really do like the concept of different motions for each pitch. I'm a big fan of that. I will say, just while we are sitting here analyzing things, I like the pinpoint motion. I think it's good. If I was to be someone who is, you know, analytically speaking, I feel like every pitch was more than plausible to do consistently besides the splitters. So the splitters and forkballs didn't 100% work as function with certain Xbox controllers. It was like impossible for them to execute that pitch properly. I think that was way too difficult of a pitch for a splitter, which I don't think many people loved in the first place. Now that the motion is tough for people that use pinpoint, kind of keeps people away from that. And then circle changes. Find it weird that a changeup is so easy to throw and a circle change is way more work. I get what they're doing with it, you know, it's a circle change, it's a circle thing, blah, blah, blah. I get that. Just being someone who's using different players, I like the idea of the circle change being closer to the changeup. And the splitter not being such a weird pitch to throw. But other than that, I think I liked every other pitch in terms of the motion and all that. I don't think it was too difficult and all that. While you're at it, though, you may want to make the screwball a little bit more difficult, because the screwball is basically like an opposite moving curveball. It's a very difficult pitch to throw, and the screwball in terms of the motion didn't feel difficult at all. It's a really easy pitch to throw. And finally, practice mode. I think practice, they did some improvements this year, allowing you to choose specific pitches, part of the zone. All that helped me with making some content. I'm gonna say this again. If we can somehow get practice mode with our Diamond Dynasty team, that would be the biggest dub on planet Earth. People want to be able to use the players they're using in their DD lineups all year. And the only workaround is to basically make an offline roster players that exist in DD. And I don't really love that. I like the idea of literally just implementing this into Diamond Dynasty. Let me go into practice mode with my DD team, get some reps with them directly. Right now, there's no easy way to do this. And I think it would really improve the DD experience by allowing you to practice with those players and cards that actually exist in Diamond Dynasty. Now, in terms of pitching and different things like that, I think now you need to ease it up a little bit. You know, certain things with pitching definitely are more in our control. We have more control where a pitch goes, all of that. There's more of a skill with pitching well, which I think is great. But now you got to ease some things up a little bit, like outlier. Jacob deGrom throwing 102 outlier for 120 pitches in the game is very difficult to really have exist, in my opinion. So many outlier pitches just were the meta this year. You got to fine tune how outlier works, or those extreme velocities for each pitcher. I like the idea of not having it as a separate perk. When you get the quirk, you're always going to be throwing at 100 plus. Like, your range of velocity on that pitch is always going to be that extreme high. If you don't have outlier but have like 99 velo on that pitch, you could range between like 99 mile per hour on a four seam to 95. You have like a big range of velo, and maybe you need to do that with outlier. Or even more than that, fine-tune it based on the pitchers. So for example, in my opinion, if you guys remember Justin Verlander in his prime, which he tried to emulate with his no-hitter card, he was someone that pitched not with 100 mile per hour velo all game. He was someone that pitched in the high 90s for a lot of the game. You know, the velo was still tough, but say it was like the last couple innings, or say he knew he was going to be pulled, he went out there and gave it his all and then hit the hundreds like the Jacob deGroms. He wasn't always throwing it all game. And I think it would be cool to balance it based on each pitcher, fine tune it based on the scenario that the pitcher throws in, you know? And I feel like having it just be simplified to having the quirk and not is very tough. You know, someone like Kerry Wood was a lot worse this year because he didn't have outlier, in my opinion. You know, a good card, but he doesn't have outlier. Jacob, any pitcher who had outlier was really just like a big pick this year. Next year, you got to try to balance it, make it more of a personalized thing for each pitcher, and not make it such an annoying thing. I mean, me, someone who plays the game well, it's not the biggest deal, but for the large majority of the people who doesn't play in a monitor or anything like that where they can react quickly, it's very difficult to time up outlier on a TV. I can promise you that. I would go nuts if I faced Jacob deGrom every day on like a TV and stuff trying to play the game. I think it's probably something that kept people off the game for a bit when they were facing Edward Cabrera and Jacob deGrom all the time. And yeah, so next video when we're gonna talk about this, we'll go over the fielding and stuff that happened with fielding this year, ball players and all of that. That'll be a fun conversation. Franchise in March or October, and then the next gen version of MLB the Show. I think we'll be going into those things as we get into the next videos and all of this. If you guys enjoyed this breakdown of the new features that will be the Show 21, let me know in the comments. Give a like on this video. This will be something we do over these next few weeks as we lead into the new game. What do you think about these features in MLB the Show 21? Is there anything you'd want to see changed in regards to these specific things with the new game? And what other things do you want to see with MLB the Show 22 likely on the horizon? You have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all again on the next one. Deuces.